Hi guys, welcome to day 15 of our Kickstart. So this week I've been talking with you about the other elements other than the nutrition that are important for results. So essentially we're talking about obviously the nutrition first, getting the right foods, then enough water, enough sleep, okay, and enough movement, 4 days of exercise, 4 days of activity. So those are the first key elements. And the final one is what we call the 10% rule. So basically, let's make sure you're getting the right foods, enough movement, enough water, enough sleep, 90% of the time, and then 10% of the time you can get away with kind of having the odd treat. You know, some programs call it a cheat day. I'm not keen on that terminology because cheat makes you feel like it's bad and it's a guilt thing, and which isn't great psychologically, I don't think. You should actually be able to enjoy that 10% without feeling bad at all. So I don't like call it a cheat day. We call it kind of 10% meals, if you like, or 10%, the 10% rule. As a rule of thumb, if you have, if you eat 3 times a day, that's 21 meals in the week. You will probably get away with 2 of those meals or 2 occasions in the week where you're not quite fully on plan. Now that might be extra. So you might have your 21 meals might be like absolutely spot on, but it might be a couple of nights in the week where you have a few drinks, for example. That would encompass your 10%. Or it might be that, one of those meals is a Sunday dinner and you have dessert and all the trimmings, etc. And one of the nights in the week, you go out for a meal with the family, or maybe even if it's a takeaway or something like that. But if it's a couple of times a week, it's your 10%, you'll get away with it. What you won't get away with, and this is important, guys, if and I've talked about gamifying your results in terms of like focusing on a little initial target and doing everything in your power to get there, and then kind of move on to the next one, and maybe have a few days of more relaxation before you move on. But if you're focusing on moving towards that target, what you won't get away with is having a couple of meals that don't quite fit the plan, and a couple of nights drinking, and a couple of coffees with a couple of sugars in, or even one each day, a coffee with sugar, for example, and stuff like that. You won't get away with all of it put together. And the problem a lot of people have is each individual element of that is only a little bit. It's a little won't hurt me. But when you add it all together, it means you go over your, what you will realistically get away with. So it's massively important, guys. Okay, it's both a gift and it's a double-edged sword. We will, we want you to embrace and enjoy the 10% rule, but you can't afford to go over it. Okay. Now, when you've achieved your results, the 10% becomes 20%. When you're maintenance, it becomes 80-20. But when you're trying to move towards that target, it's got to be 90% on plan, 10% off. So just to reiterate, if you have, 3 meals a day, 21 meals a week, 2 meals or 2 occasions in that week, you will get away with, not sticking to the plan completely. As I say, it could be a takeaway, it could be a few drinks, etc. But what you can't do is add them all up. And what you've really, really got to try and do is focus on what are the elements that you really are going to savor and enjoy, whereas what are the elements that are just habit that actually if you just overcame that habit, it wouldn't be an issue. It might be your teas and coffee. So if I said, right, you can have a couple of the nights where you can have a drink and enjoy a few glasses of wine or a few beers or whatever a couple of nights a week, but you can't have your teas and coffees with sugars in, which one would you choose? Because can you make it a habit to have water or green tea or something like that instead of the teas and coffees, or to use stevia instead of sugar with your tea and coffee, so you're not having the sugar, so then you can be allowed to have it, when you have your few drinks, for example. So you've got to weigh up, guys, what are the things that really you could do without, with a little bit of willpower and a little bit of focus, versus the things that will keep you going mentally. Okay, and that's really important. So 10%, no more than that. When you've achieved your results, it can be 20%, but focus on getting to each target in turn. Now, what you might do is when you've hit your first target, you might say, right, I'm going to have a week of kind of maintenance, if you like, where I am going to go 80-20 and just have a little bit of a recharge of the batteries. And then I'm going to get back onto the 90-10 again. Okay, so that's the best way to do it, guys. Now, if you're following, for example, the 2-week Kickstart or something like that, or a little bit of a detox, or if you've got a bit off the rails and you need to get on plan again, then we don't have the 10% rule. If it's a short burst of what I call immersion, then you go for it. You don't have the 10%. So you follow the low carb completely for that 10 days or 2 weeks or whatever it is. Okay, so don't get confused with that, guys. The 10% is when we're just on a more of a long-term plan. If we're doing a kickstart like the low carb boot camp, you don't have the 10% rule. Okay, I hope that makes sense, guys, and I'll speak to you soon.